Remembering Lacey, how her smile would make you smile. Remembering Lacey, how she loved, there's no denial. Now the angels hold her gently, and little Connor's with her too. And she smiles and says, we're all right, and we send our love to you. So full of life and happiness was pretty Lacey's life. With little Connor on the way, just made things seem so right. Still the two of them together, from the start to heaven's door. And she smiles and says, we love you, to the one she's loved before. The tears that fell made flowers bloom on earth in heaven too. And little Connor runs and picks them. Mama, these for you. Now the angels are preparing special tributes from afar. As you gaze into the heavens, look, the Lacey Connor star. Remembering Lacey, how her smile would make you smile. Remembering Lacey, how she loved, there's no denial. Now the angels hold her gently, and little Connor's with her too. And she smiles and says, we're all right, and we send our love to you. And we send our love to you. We love you.
One, two, Hey, everybody. We got some goodness, guys. You know, every Christmas, I always think about JFK.
That's fucking bullshit!
All right. It's bullshit. But we're going to watch some JFK shit, guys. You ready? This is... I don't know if you'll be able to handle this, guys. This is Lee Harvey Oswald photo analysis done by a dank dude. Hanford, where are you, you little shit? Hanford, get the lights. Hanford, lights, Hanford. Thank you, Hanford. Guys, you ready? We're gonna do it. Whoa, that's fucking fake, dude.
Hello, I'm Craig Maurer. Welcome to this edition of Special Report. Today, we deal with the greatest mystery in the history of the United States. Who killed President John F. Kennedy?
Fucking Hanford.
We'll be looking at some photographic evidence which serious researchers believe proves that his death resulted from a conspiracy.
Special report time.
Only 46 years old at the time of his death, Kennedy was the
46 years young.
Youngest American president. He was also the first president born
I still
in the
have that
century.
somewhere.
He represented a youthful, more flexible outlook on the world and our society. The people loved his style. They loved his attempts to avoid war through negotiation.
He was kind of a douche.
And his initiatives in the areas of civil rights and social programs. But the young president had more than his fair share of enemies, most of them right here at home. Organized crime bosses
Ted
were cutting
Cruz's
against
dad.
his life because of the crime-busting efforts of his brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Politicians were fearful of his attacks on the status quo, and the military and attendant intelligence agencies were angry over Kennedy's lack of aggressiveness during the Bay of Pigs invasion and the subsequent Cuban Missile Crisis.
Steve Harvey got away with it?
1963, Kennedy had angered...
I knew that motherfucker. You know, you don't have big choppers like Steve Harvey and not be guilty, or not be guilty.
Military leaders
He did
by
something.
announcing that he was withdrawing all U.S. military personnel from South Vietnam. In the midst of these tensions between the young president and the American establishment, Kennedy made a political fence-mending trip to Texas. On November the 22nd, 1963, while he was riding in a motorcade in downtown Dallas, shots rang out in a small park area known as Dealey Plaza.
It was Hanford.
Kennedy was rushed to a nearby hospital, but was declared dead shortly after 1 p.m., and events moved rapidly after that. In the minutes following the president's
Let's
death,
get to the analysis.
virtually the entire nation sat in shock by their radios and television sets to hear the tales of the tragedy. Lyndon Baines Johnson was sworn in as the 36th president, and the Dallas police stunned the world by apprehending...
I always thought Steve Harvey looked like a black Baba Booey.
...a suspect within 2
They
hours
look exactly alike.
of the shooting death of both Kennedy
Jumpin'
and
Jeff
Dallas
did it?
policeman J.D. Tippit. That suspect's name was Lee Harvey Oswald, and within hours, the media was filled with an astonishing wealth of information about him. An ex-Marine who had attempted to defect to Russia, Oswald was immediately labeled...
That might be true about the pick robs, but how do you investigate them? Where would you even start?
Police quickly produced an abundance of evidence, including a rifle found in the Texas School Book Depository, a building overlooking Dealey Plaza. They traced that rifle to a Dallas post office box used by Oswald.
Oh, shit.
The Dallas district attorney proclaimed an open and shut case against Oswald, who insisted he was innocent.
I didn't undo it.
I'm just a patsy. And it was 10 months later that a government commission created by President Johnson reported that Oswald was in fact Kennedy's lone assassin and that there was no conspiracy.
Hey, thanks, Johnson. Hey, that Johnson really cleared stuff up.
And people accepted this conclusion because they had already been conditioned to accept Oswald's guilt. In February of 1964, Life magazine had published on its cover a most incriminating photograph of Oswald holding a rifle and wearing a pistol in his belt. The caption accompanying that picture bluntly stated, Lee Oswald with the weapons he used to kill President Kennedy and Officer Tippit.
Must have been a windy day.
Yet this was 7 months before the Warren Commission announced their conclusion of Oswald's guilt. But was this photo a fake? Well, one assassination
We're gonna find out, guys.
and graphics expert has spent more than 2 decades studying this picture, which he claims to be a clever forgery used to incriminate Oswald. That expert is Jack White of Fort Worth, Texas.
Fake!
Let me show you the results of my photo analysis and see if you too can detect the graphics blunders which prove that a powerful conspiracy resulted
This guy's a dangerous dude. You don't cross Jack White.
in the death of President Kennedy.
The photograph in question was one of two allegedly found by Dallas police investigating President Kennedy's murder. And how did this picture suddenly turn up on the most influential magazine in America? The leak of this important piece of evidence is certainly mysterious. Now, Life originally was offered that photo by an anonymous donor.
More like Get a Life.
Ended up paying Oswald's wife, Marina, less than $5,000 for a copy of the original. But at least two other copies of that picture quickly were made public. They were published across the country by the Associated Press. Although it seems apparent that these photocopies were leaked by the authorities sworn to uphold the law, there was no official criticism of this unorthodox treatment of material assassination evidence. And what about the man pictured with the rifle in this photo? Well, according to Warren Commission documents, Oswald was shown the photograph while being questioned by Dallas homicide captain Will Fritz.
And he was quoted as saying, "What the hell?"
Now, Fritz reported that Oswald said the picture was not his. The face was his face, but that the picture had been made by somebody who superimposed his face on somebody else's body.
Yeah, right. What kind of alien technology could do that?
Part of the picture, he said, was not him at all, and he'd never seen that picture before. So, the authorities said that the incriminating photograph was proof of Oswald's guilt.
You might be onto something.
Oswald, on the other hand, claims the picture is some sort of a fake with his face pasted on somebody else's body. Now, if in fact that photograph is a cleverly contrived fake, there must be much more to Kennedy's assassination than simply a lone, misguided assassin.
Yeah.
This concern is even voiced by G. Robert Blakey, the chief counsel of the House Select Committee on Assassinations. That committee looked into the Kennedy assassination.
You don't fucking... G. Robert knows what he's talking about.
In the late 1970s. Blakey has stated,
if they are invalid, how they were produced poses far-reaching questions in the area of conspiracy. For they evince a high degree
but I have alien technology.
Technical sophistication that would almost necessarily raise the possibility that more than private parties conspired not only to kill the president, but to make Oswald a patsy.
Yep.
Someone other than private individuals conspired to kill the president? Well, obviously, these backyard photographs now take on much greater significance than previously believed. For instance, did Oswald's wife actually
take it's so untrue.
The photograph as the government claims, or was it carefully constructed in some sophisticated graphics laboratory as Oswald himself suggests?
Jack's gonna break it down.
To try and answer these questions, we've studied every aspect of those
guys. We got a lot of JFK, like an hour and a half.
backyard photographs.
It's a lot of
shit. We've now confirmed the rather startling information brought to our attention by Mr. White.
Oh, shit!
Reporter Dan Foster is standing by with some details on just where those pictures were discovered. Dan?
Pickles is evil.
Greg, behind me is 2515 West 5th in Irving, a suburb west of Dallas. In the fall of 1963,
that voice don't match the dome.
Oswald's wife was staying here with Ruth Payne. Although he had a rented room in Dallas, Oswald himself stayed here the night before the assassination.
You broke your mic,
and it was here on the day following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy that police claimed they discovered two pictures of Oswald with a rifle, despite the fact they had searched the home carefully the day before. This one, Warren Commission Exhibit 133A, is the most famous. It was used on the cover of Life magazine.
That looks real.
This is Exhibit 133B, supposedly another pose taken only moments from 133A. While officially only these two photos and the negative to 133...
I always remember being a little kid watching that one picture, like, how does he stand like that? That doesn't even make sense. It's like he's going to fall over.
B were found among Oswald's belongings in the Payne's garage. Dallas Detective Gus Rose told...
What?
The Warren Commission he found two negatives. To further confuse the issue, two separate listings of Oswald's possessions confiscated by Dallas police failed to mention these most incriminating photographs. Furthermore, an intensive search of Oswald's possessions failed to turn up either the black shirt or dark pants seen in the photographs.
Because what could just own them.
And these were not the only discrepancies concerning these photos. Oswald's mother, Marguerite, told the Warren Commission that on the night of the assassination, Marina showed her a picture of Oswald in the backyard holding a rifle over his head. At her insistence, the incriminating photo was burned and flushed down a toilet. Mrs. Oswald could have been confused over when she saw the picture or what pose it depicted, but there's no confusion about this third backyard photo. This third photo, which has never been officially explained, was discovered in 1976 by the Senate Intelligence Committee. It was in the hands of the widow of Dallas policeman Roscoe White.
He looks like a trustworthy guy.
White's son made headlines by claiming his father was one of 3 assassins firing at Kennedy and Dealey Plaza. At least some Dallas policemen must have been aware of the existence of this third photo.
Good name for a cat.
Here is a detective recreating one of the backyard photos for the Warren Commission.
Where's your gravity-defying stance?
We see that the pose used by the Dallas police to recreate the backyard photo in 1964 is the same pose of the third picture, which has never been accounted for and was suppressed for nearly 15 years. Some months ago, I learned of yet another issue which raises more questions about the discovery of these photos. The issue of the origin of these photographs becomes even stranger
a family name.
when we consider the statements of Robert and Patricia Hester, who worked long hours at the National Photo Lab in Dallas the evening of the Kennedy assassination.
Now we're going to break it down.
They were processing film and photographs for the FBI and Secret Service. With me is Jim Mars, a news reporter.
Oh, that guy? I didn't know this guy was in this.
Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
He died recently.
Nearly 2 decades, and has taught a course on the assassination at the University of Texas at Arlington since the mid-1970s. Jim, you've spoken with both the Hesters, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Unfortunately, they're both dead now.
Just like you are also dead now.
First interviewed Robert Hester in the late 1970s. He told me he saw the backyard photos in the hands of the FBI the night of the assassination. He was quite insistent on this fact. Of course, that's the day before the photos officially were discovered. In later years, his wife, Pat, confirmed this story and told me and other Texas researchers that the FBI even had a color transparency of one of the photos, as well as a picture of Oswald's backyard, but
break
with
down
no one
the
in the picture. They were very certain about all this. It's very strange.
Thank you, Jim. We'll be talking with you more a little later. To add to the mystery, yet another version of the backyard picture of Oswald was discovered in 1967. This picture, similar to the one used on Life's cover, was found by Dallas oil geologist George DeMorenshield, who was described by the Warren Commission as Oswald's last known close friend.
And generally dank dude.
DeMorenshield discovered the picture among his stored possessions upon his return to the U.S. from a lengthy stay in Haiti. That was long after the assassination. This photo contains more background image on the outer edges of the picture than the original print police claim to have found. It also shows finer detail, evidence that this photo was made with a high-quality camera, not at all like Oswald's cheap Imperial Reflex.
What? The cheap Imperial Reflex? First of all, it wasn't cheap. It's one of the greatest cameras you can get.
While there's been no official explanation for this DeMorenshield photo, it's been assumed it's a copy of backyard photo 133A. Yet this could not be, since the detail of the DeMorenshield photo is so much better than 133A, and it contains more background than the original. It appears that the DeMorenshield photo itself is a composite picture made up of 133A and the border of the film plane aperture of Oswald's camera. To add to the mystery, the DeMorenshield photo has an inscription on the back, reading "Hunter of Fascist, ha ha ha." Whoa. This odd inscription was first written lightly in pencil, then
"Fuck you, fascists,"
traced in ink. Handwriting experts have determined that the handwriting does not belong to Oswald or his wife or even George DeMorenshield.
Yeah, maybe it's cheap to people like this guy. You know that guy could buy 100 reflexes.
In a strange twist of fate, de Mohrenschildt, a Russian nobleman by birth, was close friends of Jackie Kennedy's parents, and also of Oswald, the man accused of murdering her husband. The de Mohrenschildts have said they believe the photograph was planted in their possession to further fix the idea of Oswald's guilt in the public's mind.
Thanks a lot, Dan. I want to return to
How
you
many people are going to go back and forth to?
in just a moment, but first, let's just go back a bit. In order to establish the real origin of those backyard photographs, we begin with the camera.
Please don't do that camera change where you turn over.
Used to make
turn to
them.
the other camera.
This is an Imperial reflex camera.
It's a sweet
camera.
camera.
It's a poor quality camera, handheld, and normally you hold it at waist level and view scenes by looking down into the top viewfinder. Now, reportedly, this camera
The way nature intended.
belonged to Lee Harvey Oswald, who by all accounts was quite interested in photography. Yet very few photos made with this camera were actually found after the assassination, other than those 2 incriminating backyard pictures.
How dare you.
Now, this camera was allegedly discovered in the Payne home by Oswald's brother Robert on December the 8th, 1963. That was 2 weeks after the assassination, and after several intensive police searches of that home. When the FBI
Greatest camera ever
did
made.
get the camera in February of 1964, it wasn't working, and Marina was unable to identify it as belonging to her husband. Later, however, in 1964, apparently after being coached by government lawyers, Marina changed her story. She said it was, in fact, the camera used to make Oswald's picture. Now, Dan, standing by in Dallas,
Yeah, because some federal agent put cigarette butts on her bunghole.
the official version
Put
of
cigarettes
just how
out on
those
her ass.
photographs were made. Dan?
Craig, it was here in the small backyard of this 2-story frame house at 214 West Neely Street that the incriminating photos were supposedly made in the spring of 1963. The Warren Commission determined the Dallas office of the U.S. Weather Bureau reported that March 31st was cloudy with traces of rain all day. Marina's accounts of her picture-taking session
You know, it's too much, Craig. I'm
here
with
in
you.
the backyard
You know what? You started a petition. I'll sign it.
changed several times while testifying to the Warren Commission. First, she couldn't recall taking any pictures. Then she remembered taking only one.
But then she was covered with several bruises.
Called by the commission and shown both pictures, she agreeably stated that she may have taken 2, but only 2. Of course, it is now known that a third such photograph exists.
What now, bitch?
According to Marina's testimony, the photo session only took a few minutes. Marina said about noon on that Sunday she was hanging out clothes when she saw Lee come downstairs from their apartment dressed all in black.
Looking dank.
He carried a rifle and was wearing a revolver on his hip. Marina laughed to see her husband dressed so outrageously.
She's like, what a dork.
Lee didn't laugh. Take my picture, he said. Marina begged off, saying she didn't know how to take a picture. Lee said he would set it all up and all she had to do was push a button. She reluctantly agreed, and Lee arranged the camera settings, handed the camera to Marina, and struck a pose.
Yeah, looking dank.
Click, one photo was made. Lee walked over and took the camera.
Give me that, Bill.
He
Before you break
advanced
it.
the film and handed it back. Walking back, he struck yet another pose. Click. A second photo was made, and the session was over. Lee returned to the house, and Marina returned to her wash, puzzling
He's
over
an
the
evil
odd
guy.
incident. But did this actually happen? Oswald claimed he had never seen the pictures before. Marina has been unclear about the incident.
She's Russian, okay? She can't help it.
From the beginning and could not identify the camera early on. Today, she says she did take 3 photos, but a 4th is known to have existed. It's all very strange, Craig.
What a
Strange
story.
indeed. Now remember, Oswald himself told police that the picture was a fake. And Captain Fritz reported Oswald denied ever seeing that picture. And Oswald told Fritz that he understood photography
It was a
very
deep
well
fake.
and that in time he would be able to show that it was not his picture, that it had been made by somebody else. Of course, Lee Harvey Oswald never had the chance to prove his claim that that incriminating picture was a composite fake. He was shot and killed by Dallas nightclub owner Jack Ruby 2 days after the assassination.
Oh! I saw this, you know.
Shot and killed by Dallas nightclub owner Jack Ruby 2 days after.
It's bad enough to get killed on live TV, but then someone takes that nice picture of you going, oh! That's how it'll be remembered forever, poor little guy.
After the assassination, in the basement of the Dallas police station, while being escorted to a car, handcuffed between two policemen. But while time ran out for Oswald, others have taken up the challenge. Over the years, Jack White and other assassination researchers have diligently studied the backyard photographs, and their findings are very shocking.
Here we go,
We
guys.
return now to Dan for a detailed account of
Would
Mr.
you stop moving to different people? Can we stay still for a minute? The other one we're watching
White's
after this.
research.
Ain't this crazy?
Craig, I'm here in the office of Jack White, a graphics expert in Fort Worth, Texas. Mr. White has studied the JFK assassination case since the day it happened. And as a photographic consultant, Jack presented some of his graphic analysis to the House Select Committee on Assassinations in the late 1970s. Mr. White, what got you interested in the assassination case?
Well, Dan, I've worked in graphic arts since graduating from TCU in 1949. At the time of the assassination,
Man, graphic arts in 1949 must have been dank.
I was vice president and executive art director of the largest advertising agency in Fort
Parody
Worth.
pig.
I read Oswald's comments about the backyard photos and how they were fakes, and I decided to check it out for myself.
And what have you found from your studies?
Well, Dan, I obtained good quality prints of the backyard photos from the National Archives back in the early 70s. Since then, I've studied them extensively. Along with other researchers, I've found many things about these photos which make me highly suspicious of them. There are many aspects which seem
ready to get spooked
to point to fabrication.
You mean the pictures may have been faked somehow?
Yes, exactly. I would especially point to problems with the body of the
Yes, you jerk. That's the whole reason you're here.
figure in the photograph. The rifle, the telescopic sight, Oswald's face, the picture's backgrounds. Let me explain.
And explain he did.
Very natural. Turn to the camera and explain.
Here's what White and other researchers have discovered about the famous
At
photograph.
DeVry.
We'll start with the figure in the incriminating backyard pictures. Notice the odd leaning posture of the figure in the photograph.
Yeah, that don't make no sense. You can't stand like that. What is this, the moon? Is he on Mars?
When this picture is printed backwards, the lean becomes even more pronounced. Mr. White's studies indicate that the figure's center of gravity lie outside its weight-bearing foot, a physical impossibility. Then there are problems with the figure's proportions. Here are the two photos reportedly found in the Payne garage. The most famous one, the one on the left, is known as the Warren Commission Exhibit 133A. The other is 133.
I know. When did this start? When did the fake photos start?
Notice that while the figures in these photos have been brought to the same size and the red lines mark the position of the knees and head, the figure in 133A appears to have a larger head, but a smaller body than 133B.
Whoa,
133B,
that is a bigger dome.
on the other hand, seems to have a smaller head, yet the body appears larger, especially since the feet reach outside the picture, indicating that the figure is closer to the camera. Here we see the figure's knees and toes in the same place, yet the figure on the right appears to be about 6 inches shorter than the one on the left.
How in the hell?
Notice, too, that the shadows of the figures in the photos fall in different directions, although reportedly the two pictures were made within seconds of each other.
Yeah, explain that. Explain that.
133A's shadow is in a 10 o'clock position, while 133B's shadow is more in a 12 o'clock position. In what we call 133C, the third photograph, only discovered 13 years after the assassination, White pointed out that the figure's shadow again falls in the 10 o'clock position. But while
These pictures also indicate that Oswald had undescended testicles.
Seems to be in the same position, the shadow reaches up the fence in the background, yet appears to be cast by a figure which is much shorter. In 133A, White noticed the upper left arm was much too short and the elbow abnormally high, perhaps as much as 6 to 8 inches above the waist.
That is weird. Put your elbow to your side. You're not like you're not like a foot above your heel.
In this photo, there is simply a hand gripping the rifle. In dozens of tests trying to recreate this picture, no one has been able to duplicate this unnatural posture. Here, White has taken the backyard photo 133A and matched it with a reconstruction of the picture. He made this comparison overlay with 133A and a photo of a man striking a similar pose. After matching the size of the rifles in both pictures,
I'm convinced.
White noticed that one shoulder is much lower than the other. If the right shoulder, arm, and rifle all matched up, you would expect the left shoulder and arm to also match, but it doesn't. Further evidence of possible sloppy touch-up work on this picture is here in this blow-up of 133A. Notice the fingers on the left hand appear normal. Slender fingers with clearly defined fingernails.
Hey!
But on the right hand, the fingertips appear to be missing. There's no sign of fingernails on these stubby fingers. Mr. White also noticed a wristwatch on the figure's left wrist. Oddly enough, however, no one recalled Lee Oswald owning such a watch, and no wristwatch was found among his possessions, either at his rooming house or at the Payne home.
It's a sweet
In
shirt.
addition to problems with body shapes and a vanishing wristwatch, researchers have found problems with the rifle.
The rifle, too?
The Warren Commission puzzled assassination researchers by publishing this ad, which it stated was a duplicate of the magazine ad from which Oswald reportedly ordered a rifle.
$12?
Why show the public a duplicate when the original ad was readily available, researchers asked.
Righteous.
Later investigation showed that the February 1963 ad, supposedly used by Oswald, offered a 36-inch rifle. The rifle now in the National Archives, identified as the assassination weapon, is 40 inches long. To hide this discrepancy, the government panel simply published a later ad which indeed advertised a 40-inch rifle. This discrepancy in rifle length is mirrored in discrepancies discovered by White. He found that when the figure in photograph 133A was blown up to match Oswald's known height of 5 foot 9 inches, the length of the rifle was entirely too long.
Man, they're dumping
and
a
when
whole
the
bunch of
rifles
shit
were
on
brought
us.
to the same size, matching its official 40.2-inch length, Oswald appears 6 inches too short. But an even stranger problem exists with the rifle's telescopic scope. White discovered that in 133A, the clearest and most famous of the backyard photos, the rear end of the scope appears to be missing.
Yeah, what about that?
He even found wrinkles in the pants where the end of the scope should be. Mr. White concluded that this was solid evidence that the photo was doctored in some way.
We got him, guys.
But the evidence of shortened arms, stubby fingers, and distorted rifles pales next to what White and others discovered about Oswald's face. Remember that Oswald told Dallas police that someone had pasted his head onto the incriminating picture.
I could see the lines.
Over the years, assassination researchers, beginning with Fred Newcomb of California, noticed that while Oswald's chin in the backyard photo is broad and flat, other pictures, such as this official Dallas police mugshot, show Oswald had a sharp cleft chin. Today, all researchers agree with Oswald that the backyard picture indicates some sort of photographic chin
researchers?
transplant.
You can't just say
The
that.
idea that Oswald's face was grafted onto the incriminating photo is reinforced by the discovery of a line.
Look, you could tell. Where's Hot Dog Cat? Come here, Hot Dog Cat. They cut it right here. Come on. We figured it out, guys. We figured it out.
Which interrupts the continuity of the photographic grain. This line stretches from one side of the neck under
No, Fred
the lower
Newcomb would have to change a little bit. Like, blow it out. Blow it out, your sweet patoot.
lip to the other side of the neck. Could this indicate the point where Oswald's upper face was spliced onto another
now
body?
I see that even better.
A panel of government photo analysts
I see the
lamely
line.
tried to explain away this anomaly as water spots on the negative. One panel member even said it may have been a line of pimples. But Mr. White did not rest his conclusion solely on an odd
You ain't gonna beat White that easy, guys.
line of pimples. Here he has made a red transparency of 133B. And here's a blue transparency of 133A, the other original backyard photo. Supposedly, these are two separate pictures, taken moments apart after moving the camera around while advancing the film.
Hey, bitch, take pictures of me looking all badass and shit.
If they're laid on top of each other, nothing in either photo should match identically. Yet, incredibly, we find that nothing indeed matches except for Oswald's face.
Oh, they used the same dome twice.
In this overlay is purple.
That's right, Banana.
Indicating that the red and blue transparencies match precisely at that point. This identical matching of faces is considered impossible with a handheld camera taking a series of photographs.
They use the same dome.
Mr. White and others see it as further confirmation that Oswald's face was pasted over another photo. Then there is the added problem of shadows on the face and neck.
Oh, we're doing shadows
We
too?
have already seen that problems exist with the direction of the body's shadows on the ground in the backyard photos. Mr. White points out that in the first picture, a V-shaped shadow falls under Oswald's nose, seeming to confirm his wife's statement that the photos were made about noon with the sun high in the sky. Yet on the next photo, the V-shaped shadow remains identical despite the fact that Oswald's head has tilted to the left.
There was double doming. You were correct.
Also notice that while the shadow under the nose indicates a sun directly above, there's a heavy shadow on the right side of his neck and sunlight on the left, indicating light from yet another direction.
It's those pick robs. Only they could have done that back then.
Mr. White reported inconsistencies with shadows throughout the backyard photos. Here in 133B, we see sunlight coming from the figure's left, throwing shadows well to the right rear as evidenced by the shadow of the rifle barrel on the stairway post.
I see it.
Yet we see a patch of light on the right side of his neck, which should be in shadow, and the V-shaped shadow under his nose remains the same. Oswald's neck in the backyard
That's a smug Oswald right there.
Photos presents other problems besides shadows. Here, in 133A, a slight bulge can be detected on the left side of his neck.
Maybe it was a goiter. Maybe Oswald had goiters.
Oddly enough, this unexplained bulge is not seen on the neck in 133B, but a similar slight bulge can be found in the shadow of the stairway post several feet to the rear of the figure. After making careful measurements of Oswald's neck using the formula circumference equals pi times the diameter,
Yeah,
White compared
I knew that.
this to these official police mugshots. The one on the left was made in Dallas, while the one on the right is from New Orleans. White concluded that both police mugshots depicted Oswald with a collar size of about 14.5 inches. But the backyard photo depicts Oswald with a collar size of more than 16 inches. It should be noted that all of the shirts found in Oswald's possessions were of medium size, the 14 to 15-inch collar range. White claimed this is yet another sign.
Yeah, Oswald had a chicken neck.
That the backyard photos are fraudulent composites. But if the Oswald figure and face in these pictures raise questions about their authenticity, the backgrounds pose even stranger problems. At first glance, both of the original backyard photos, 133A and 133B, appear to
he was feeling good about himself that day, that one. He's like, yeah.
Have a background photographed from slightly different perspectives.
That's a good question, Evil
But
Betty.
these apparent differences are simply the result of cropping or framing the pictures, according to Mr. White.
Why?
By cutting off the bottom of the background in one photo while cutting off the top in the other, a false perspective is achieved. By bringing both original photos into alignment as shown here, we find that the background of the photos, the grass, bush, stairs, fence, and house next door, all appear to be identical. In 133A, a green triangle points to a patch of sunlight on the side of the house behind a post holding the stairway. This highlight has not changed shape in 133B.
Yeah, what the hell?
Indicating the camera making the photo could not have changed positions horizontally. Here, a red arrow points to the edge of the roof on the house next door. This too remains unchanged in 133B, indicating that the camera never moved up and down. Each red dot represents an identical point in the background of these two supposedly separate photographs. Shadows on the stairs and fence, leaves on the bush, and blades of grass all appear to match perfectly.
This sameness of backgrounds in two separate photographs is possible in only two situations. One is that the camera was resting on a heavy tripod which never moved between frames, or that a single backyard scene was used as a background for two composite photographs.
Man, this is high tech for the 60s.
Of course, the official version of the taking of these two photos has it that Oswald's wife used a cheap handheld camera. She has specifically denied using a tripod. On the basis of these inconsistencies, anomalies, and the evidence of retouching, I believe that these incriminating backyard photographs, highly publicized as proof of Oswald's guilt, are nothing more than cleverly constructed composite forgeries. Fakes.
Oh, shit.
And Jack White is not alone.
If Jack White says something is fake, it's fake. This is the guy who figured out why Apple Jacks don't taste like apples.
This charge
he figured it out.
The incriminating photos are fakes. Major John Pickard, a photographic expert with the Canadian Defense Department, has stated publicly that the backyard pictures have the earmarks of being faked. He too called attention to the conflicting shadows and the perfect match of the Oswald faces. Another expert, Detective Superintendent Malcolm
HANFORD.
Thompson, a past president of the Institute of Incorporated Photographers in England, also has branded these pictures as fakes.
Even the Limeys are weighing in on this?
Thompson said he felt the incriminating photos were the result of a montage of separate pictures. Another noted British photographic authority, Geoffrey Crawley...
Hey, that looks like that English guy who touched all those kids.
...here with White in London, studied White's work and said it was as thorough and as accurate as any he had ever encountered.
Well, strong evidence indeed that the incriminating pictures of Lee Harvey Oswald and his weapons were faked in some sophisticated laboratory.
Oh shit, Evil Betty's on it.
To deliberately fabricate evidence against Oswald. But what about the two official investigations of the United States government? What do they have to say about these questions raised by Mr. White and other researchers?
The CIA wouldn't lie to us, Cave Squeaker. The CIA love us. The CIA loves us all.
Commission of 1964 and the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1979, after giving opposing conclusions about President Kennedy's death, closed up shop, leaving no one to answer these vital questions.
What?
All we're left with is their official reports. Dan?
The Warren Commission concluded the photos were genuine. This was based on the testimony of FBI photographic expert Wendell L. Schoenfeld. Schoenfeld said that the negative to photo 133B could be shown to have come from the Imperial reflex camera, reported to have belonged to Oswald.
That's right, Evil Betty.
This was based on markings on the negative which matched markings in the camera. Schoenfeld said since the two photos appeared to be taken at identical times and places, it was his opinion that the two pictures were not composites. However, Schoenfeld also said he could not positively identify the rifle in the photos as the same rifle held by the FBI as the assassination weapon. Apparently, in an attempt to resolve the problem of the conflicting shadows, Schoenfeld presented the commission a photograph of an FBI man recreating...
Never trust a Schoenfeld,
the backyard
whatever name
pose
that
of
is.
Oswald. Taken in bright sunlight with a body shadow which matched the one in the photo, This official photo might have settled the question of whether or not the Oswald neck and nose shadows might be duplicated naturally. Oddly enough,
I lost Hitler's brain, Jeff MK. Now I'm stuck here.
The FBI cut off the man's head in their photo, leaving the question still open. Schoenfeld explained that he cropped the agent's head because he didn't feel it was pertinent.
You don't need all that head business.
I have had shivering, rough diarrhea all night.
Oh!
You know what Lee Harvey shot JFK with? A rocket launcher. 5 actually. 5 rocket launchers.
All right. After all, it is Christmas. All right.
Rocket launcher. Rocket launcher. Rocket launcher. Rocket launcher. Rocket launcher.
All right, I'm done. Nah, just kidding. One more.
Rocket launcher.
In the late 1970s, the House Select Committee on Assassinations was created by Congress to review the evidence in the deaths of both President Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. This official panel did little better than the Warren Commission in determining the truth of these assassinations. Faced with acoustical evidence of a second gunman in Dealey Plaza, the House committee grudgingly admitted that Kennedy probably died as the result of a conspiracy. In an attempt to resolve the dispute...
all those JFK domes, or Oswald domes. Which is your favorite dome? I like the bald one.
Over the legitimacy of the backyard photographs, committee experts turned to a system of measuring and comparing minute distances in photos known as the Penrose distance statistics. They endeavored to prove the size and shape of Oswald's facial characteristics were identical in several different photos of him, including the backyard snapshots. Using complicated mathematical formulas which...
Yeah, something you idiots wouldn't understand. I think that's what they're trying to tell us, guys. They're calling us idiots.
Match the Penrose system measurements with the backyard photos and other pictures of Oswald. The committee experts concluded that there were no biological inconsistencies in the photos to support the idea that anyone other than Lee Harvey Oswald was pictured.
Well, guess what?
In other words, these government-hired experts asserted that the man in the backyard photos is definitely Oswald because his feature measurements matched other shots of Oswald. These paid experts also concluded that the backyard photos were genuine by studying identifying marks made by the camera's film plane edge on the negative of 133B. After comparing scratches on the 133B negative...
We're busted, guys.
...to other film exposed through the Imperial reflex camera, they were able to conclude that the markings matched, therefore indicating that the 133B negative indeed came from the camera reportedly belonging to Oswald.
That's it.
Evidence enough for them that the photos are genuine. The government experts also concluded that there was no fakery involved in the backyard photos by closely studying Oswald's mouth in the two original pictures. By looking closely at an overlay of the two pictures, it was noted that in one photo, Oswald is slightly smiling, and in the other, he is slightly frowning.
Oh, you just trimmed the ends. Get out of here. What do you think, we're stupid?
Two expressions, two separate photos.
Where's Jack?
They also discovered minute differences in measurements of details in the background of these two photos. The roof line in one did not quite match in the other. The fence posts did not match precisely. Again, such differences, no matter...
I hate government fiblets and untruthitudes.
How slight, supported the idea that these were separate photographs. And this seemed to invalidate the idea that they were composite fakes.
Well, it seems like we're right back where we started. Government-hired photography experts maintain that the incriminating backyard photos are exactly what they appear to be. Separate pictures of Lee Harvey Oswald with a rifle, which at least appears similar to the one said to have killed President Kennedy.
I have a feeling Jack's going to break it all down.
Dan, just how did Jack White respond to the findings of the House committee?
Craig, things aren't always as simple as the experts make them seem. Mr. White offered us a strong rebuttal to the conclusions of the government experts. In reporting the results of the Penrose measurements of Oswald's facial characteristics, it seems the House committee was less than honest. Note in this comparison chart of Oswald photos published in an appendix to the committee's report 3 measurements have been left out. These 3 just happen to include the same areas of suspicion raised by Jack White, namely Oswald's nose length, earlobes, and most significantly his chin. White said if these 3 missing measurements have been added to the Penrose study, it most likely would have revised the numbers to the extent that a conclusion that all of the Oswald photos were identical in facial features would not have been possible.
How dare you?
Especially considering the controversy over the shape of Oswald's chin. So the committee chose to simply delete the troublesome figures. The conclusion
the perfect crime
that the one backyard photo negative could be traced to the Imperial reflex camera is even easier to explain, according to White. He said the ballistics type evidence of markings on the negative which matched markings made by the Imperial reflex camera can be explained 2 ways. One method would simply be to acquire the Imperial reflex camera. Keep in mind it was not found until some time after the assassination. White said an exposure could have been made through the camera which would show nothing but the markings on the edge of the negative. This fabricated negative edge, when combined with a faked backyard photo, would have resulted in a negative of the faked picture with the negative markings traceable to the Imperial.
Yeah, you make the fake picture. You take the pictures with a high quality camera, and you make your fake, and you put it up against the wall. Then you take your shit camera, the Imperial Reflex, which I think is a fine camera in its own right. But you take the shit camera, and then you take a picture of the wall. Boom, marks are there. I figured it out.
Imperial reflex camera.
And I'm stupid.
However, Mr. White said another way to achieve the same effect would be simply to build a composite picture using one backyard background, add a figure with a rifle, then Oswald's face, and photocopy the whole thing with the Imperial reflex camera.
That's what I just said.
Mr. White also pointed out to us that this backyard photograph, discovered by the Des Moines Shields years after the assassination, has a black border indicating it was produced from the entire original negative. Yet the negative reportedly was never found and has never been made public.
There's no negative? Get out of here,
Mr. White said this is evidence that this photo was somehow produced without the Imperial reflex camera negative. This photo was produced with a high-quality camera with high resolution power for fine detail, indicating that the backyard photos could have been made prior to being photographed by the inferior Imperial reflex camera. That explanation was understandable enough. I then asked Mr. White to explain how Oswald could have 2 different expressions if the photos were faked, and there was actually only one face. He demonstrated that the only difference between the 2 original photos was in the area of Oswald's mouth. He explained that a clever retouch artist could have turned Oswald's mouth down with the stroke of a brush. Jack, what makes you think this was done?
Well, I've done similar things with retouching over the years. I've worked in advertising, so I know how simple it is to accomplish
He knows this stuff.
Also, after studying this matter for some time, I realized that it's physically impossible to change one's expression from a smile to a frown without moving the muscles throughout the entire face. Try it yourself sometime in the bathroom mirror. Just see.
You're right, Jack.
See if you can change from a smile to a frown. Try it yourself sometime in the bathroom mirror, without moving the muscles throughout the entire face. Try it yourself sometime in the bathroom mirror. Just see if you can change from a smile to a frown without moving any part of your face but your mouth. It's impossible.
But even Mr. White was puzzled for a time by some of the apparent differences in the background of the photos.
Frankly, I was confounded at these small differences. I had long ago come to the conclusion, based on years of study, that the backyard photographs were composites and that only one true picture of the Neely Street backyard had been used. But I could not explain what seemed to be slight differences in measurements and perspective between the 2 photos.
But you figured it out.
Then I discovered that photograph 133A seemed to have a slight downward perspective, as if the camera had been pointing down, while 133B seems to have an upward perspective, although the parallel lines of the stairway posts and the garage indicate no vertical perspective. You have to understand perspective. Artists and photographers are familiar with terms such as horizon lines and vanishing points. Notice how, from this perspective, my thumb covers a photo on the wall behind me. Notice what happens when the camera moves just slightly.
Hey, where'd it go?
You get a totally different perspective. You can demonstrate this for yourself by holding out one thumb and closing one eye.
Nah, I'll take your word for it, Jack.
When you open the closed eye, you get a different perspective. It all has to do with the perspective of the viewer, in this case, the camera. I found that 133B did seem to have a stretch in perspective, but only in one direction. So I began to experiment in the darkroom with the 133A print in the easel stand.
Oh, we know what you're doing in that darkroom, Jack.
And the 133 negative in my enlarger. I was familiar with a process known as keystoning, which is a darkroom technique to introduce a false perspective to a one-dimensional photograph. By simply tilting the easel under the enlarger, it makes the resulting photograph appear to have a slightly different perspective. This was the single most thrilling moment of my investigation, because when I tilted the easel, the backgrounds came into perfect alignment, proving that the two backgrounds of the backyard photographs were identical.
Case fucking closed.
I had reversed the process of whoever made the composite photographs. I had proved to myself that they were nothing more than clever fakes concocted in some darkroom somewhere using sophisticated graphic and photographic techniques. In my investigation of the backyard photographs, I had hoped to answer some questions about their origin and authenticity. Now there are more questions than ever. If they are fakes, as I feel I have demonstrated, then who produced them? Why they were produced is obvious enough, to incriminate Oswald as a presidential assassin. But who had the ability to produce such forgeries?
Fucking
It seems to me they must have been made prior to the assassination, and this means someone other than Oswald had prior knowledge of what was about to happen. It also seems reasonable to conclude that these fakes were produced in a sophisticated facility with all of the equipment necessary for the techniques used. Therefore, I conclude that these backyard photographs, important evidence, are fakes.
We must remember that Mr. White's conclusions of fakery have been echoed by foreign photographic experts in Canada and England. Now let's return to Jim Mars and hear his thoughts on this issue.
I think I speak for many people who have studied the assassination when I thank Jack White and the many others who have made such a painstaking study of the backyard photographs. It appears obvious to most researchers that serious questions remain regarding the authenticity of these photographs, despite the pronouncement.
I remember that. I've seen that one years ago, but I remember that being different. I remember him going over all the domes. I remember there being more dome checks. That's all right, guys. We're just getting started. Now the good one. I think.
My name is Jack White, and I have researched the JFK assassination since 1963.
Jack, seems like you aged a few years, dude.
My special interest is the study of photographs of the assassination. Today, I present my most recent photographic analysis. It proves that the most famous evidence of the assassination, the 8mm movie taken by Abraham Zapruder at noon in Dealey Plaza.
Well, this guy did a bunch of them. He went over all the mugshots and how the mugshots were fake.
55 years ago, has been altered and parts of it fabricated.
So it must be mixed in some
What has been called the time clock of the assassination now cannot be of any value in that regard.
It's busted,
What has been used by government commissions and researchers alike to determine wounds, shots, and actions in the presidential motorcade is totally
you'd be half dead too if you were fighting for truthitudes and justices and
unreliable as evidence. Millions of dollars are being sought from taxpayers for the so-called camera original, although it can now be proved that it is not the original at all. Yes, the film in the National Archives is not the camera original. It is a fake and a fabrication. It has been called the film of the century. I call it the hoax of the century.
Fuck! Easy,
Let me
Jack.
explain.
All right.
But before we start, let's play a short segment of relevant videotape featuring assassination witness Jean Hill.
I jumped out in the street.
Oh,
and
I like your dress.
yelled, you know, and started yelling at him, "Hey, Mr. President, look this way. We want to take your picture." I jumped out in the street. I jumped out in the street. I jumped out in the street.
Remember
you jumped out in the street?
Gene said, because it plays an important part in my analysis of the Zapruder film.
Yeah. Don't sell his
You've
shit.
seen it 100 times. The film of the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. The young president on Elm Street, waving at friendly crowds. Suddenly, a shot rings out, and the president comes from behind a freeway sign. His hands go to his throat in distress. In the jump seat ahead of him sits John Connolly, his right hand grasping his Stetson
Ladybug
hat.
dresses. Yes. Bring back ladybug dresses,
Until in
please.
frame 238, the governor's cheeks puff out and his right shoulder collapses as he is hit.
My
Governor
cheeks.
Connolly screams out, "My God, they're going to kill us all." Mrs. Kennedy looks at her husband in stunned disbelief, and her
She
left
did it.
hand grasps his wrist. The gravely wounded Connolly turns to look directly at the president. The president begins to slump forward and to his left, and his wife bends to look in his face. Her face is close to his, and her arm is across his chest.
Hey, what's going
Her
on?
left hand is on his right shoulder when suddenly
They busted
the
his
president's head explodes just inches from her
Boom!
head. The next frame reveals a massive exit wound of the right temple and forehead.
Man, that dome came apart, dude. That dome
Then a
really
strange
came
thing
apart.
happens. The bright white frontal head exit wound begins to move around and change size and change shape
I always thought it was a meat flap.
as he falls toward his wife's lap. The entire forehead is shown to be missing, leaving nothing but a stump of head.
Stump
and
of
a bright
head.
white blob where his forehead was.
I mean, it was no, what was his name? McNutt? It was no McNutt, but it was close.
Back in the 70s, in my slide lectures, I began questioning the authenticity of these head wounds. My audiences agreed that these head wounds were very strange, especially since all other evidence indicated that the president's face was undamaged. I began wondering whether the Zapruder film was authentic. Do the selected Zapruder frames I have just shown depict what really happened?
Yes. Or no.
After more than a year of
don't
recent
know.
study, I can now say positively that the Zapruder film, the film of the century, can be proved to be the hoax of the century.
Strong words.
The obviously phony head wound had initiated my interest in fabrication of the film. But my research really started to accelerate in the summer of 1998 when my friend Robert Roden invited me to attend the filming in Dealey Plaza of a Turner television documentary where he was serving as a consultant. My camera and I went to the plaza where I introduced myself to two styrofoam figures representing JFK and Connolly sitting in an exact replica of the motorcade limousine. Connecting the president and the governor was a yellow rod which represented the single bullet theory. The limo was
What a crock of
placed by
shit.
professional surveyors in the exact Elm Street location determined by frame 313.
Like I said, McNutt was the smuggest dome explosion I've ever seen.
This is very important to proving the film is faked. I was able to photograph the 313 limousine position from many important locations, such as Orville Nix's, and from the place where Mary Moorman is shown to be standing in the Zapruder film. Most importantly, I was able to photograph the limo, which is owned by Dallas tour operator Paul Crute, from the exact place on the pedestal where the Zapruder camera was located.
Yeah.
Let me repeat that. Same limo, same 313 location, same Z camera location. All essential to this study, as you will see.
Uh-oh. He's going to break it
But
down,
now,
guys.
let's go back to the Crute limo, as seen from the same place on the Dealey grass
I
where
think it was
Mary
Alien.
is seen in the Z film. Examining this slide, I discovered that the background differed significantly from the actual Moorman photo. Now, I'm among the foremost examiners of the Moorman photo, having studied numerous excellent copies of it for many months.
Don't question him, jerks.
In the early 1980s, after discovering in it images on the grassy knoll of a man in an apparent police uniform behind the picket fence. We called him Badge Man because of the badge on his chest. He is in a rifle firing position with a puff of smoke in front of his chin. Behind Badge Man, a man in a construction helmet is looking over his shoulder.
How do you get that?
Some 20 feet southeast of Badge Man, a soldier named Gordon Arnold is filming the assassination with his mother's movie camera. Badge Man was thought to be an important research breakthrough when discovered in 1982. It is certain that the Moorman Polaroid is genuine. There was no time nor opportunity to tamper with it, since this copy of the photo, propped up next to a Zippo lighter, was made by a Dallas press photographer within about 2 hours from the time Mary snapped it.
I have no idea. I don't know where they got that.
With, the Moorman Polaroid
maybe
photo
it was.
represents a moment frozen in time for 35 years. It therefore must represent the line of sight from Mary's camera toward the grassy knoll.
I can't
the
see
Zippo
nothing.
negative produced excellent prints, such as this one by United Press. The Moorman Polaroid copies were distributed by international wire services all over the world on November 22nd. Printed reproductions of that day are identical to the original Polaroid print, which I also have copied.
Let's
the
see.
best 8x10 prints were obtained from Josiah Thompson and Harold Weisberg. The one shown here we called Thompson number 1. Its background proves it was printed from the Zippo negative taken on 11/22/63.
Otherwise known as the greatest gun in the world, Craig.
The lack of the large fingerprint artifact also identifies it. So we are certain the Moorman photo is genuine and never tampered with.
Where do you get the cop guy at?
Let's return to November 22nd and look at Polaroid photos taken that morning of Mary Moorman and her friend, Jean Hill. These two friends had come to Dealey Plaza to take Polaroid photos with Mary's camera, hoping to get pictures of boyfriends who were motorcycle escorts for the presidential
my
motorcade.
boyfriend Reginald is in the motorcade.
Why am I spending so much time on the Moorman photo? Here is why. She took what is undoubtedly the most important photo of the assassination.
Oh, shit.
Suspiciously, her photo was not entered in evidence nor published by the Warren Commission.
Yeah, you know
Neither
why.
was she called to testify by the commission. Why? Because her photo and testimony were dangerous to the official conclusion of a lone nut assassin. First, her photo showed the image of Badge Man firing a frontal shot.
Yeah, that's the stupidest thing ever.
Also, it may contain other images, such as a gunman in the acoustics position behind the fence, and perhaps a piece of skull.
Did you ever see the video where they, not to interrupt a flying chunk of skull, but did you ever see the video where the cops, like, kick the Secret Service off the limo? And they're like, hey, wait a minute. They, like, tell them to get off the car, because they rode on the side of the limo.
Of the head. My recent computer enhancement of JFK's right shoulder shows something in the air over his right shoulder, which is not part of the coat. But more importantly, the Moorman photo provides absolute proof of alteration of the Zapruder movie. It is proof which anyone can replicate when you know what to look for. And Mary's friend, Jean Hill, as well as helping Mary take the photos, also provides very important information which helps the Moorman photo prove that the Z film is false, as I will show. Jean has always said she and Mary
there's a video where they kick them off the side of the limo, and they're just sitting there shrugging, like, I don't know. And they get in the, I think they get in the truck behind them.
To take the photo. And she has always claimed that the commission changed her testimony to merely near the street. I've already shown you a video of Jean saying that she and Mary stepped into the street to take the photo. And here is a page from Jean's book which tells the same story.
Imagine writing a book as you saw something. Hey, I saw this thing. Time to write a book.
Not changed in 35 years. Notice that she writes that she stepped into the street and said, "Hey, Mr. President, look over here. We want to take your picture."
Where that bitch?
As you may know, the Zapruder film shows both Jean and Mary on the grass,
looking
about
great.
2 feet south of the curb. Mary is seen here in the black coat taking her photo. Jean and Mary are clearly not in the street as they insisted. With these anomalies in mind, in August I began trying to resolve the differences between Moorman and Zapruder. Here you see the original Moorman photo again, uncropped. In the upper right corner of the photo, in the red oval, we see Mr. Zapruder and Marilyn Sitzman on the pergola.
Why'd you just look it up where they kick him off the car?
Pedestal. Here is an enlargement of Mr. Z and his secretary on the pedestal. Notice that Zapruder seems startled, his knees bent, and the camera perhaps lowered.
I can't see anything.
When I made a giant enlargement of this on my computer screen, I immediately saw something important I had never noticed before. I noticed that the southwest vertical edge of the pedestal exactly lined up with the northwest vertical edge of the pergola window, some 35 feet behind the pedestal. Furthermore, the top edge of the pedestal exactly lined up horizontally with the bottom edge of the same window. Thus, the lines A and B of the window and lines C and D of the pedestal join to form a perfect cross.
That's clearly Bigfoot.
An ideal reference point.
Or a werewolf.
For finding the exact line of sight of Moorman's camera. Find the cross, and you have the Moorman line of sight. The lens of Moorman's Polaroid camera must be somewhere along this line.
Hey, a broad that'll climb to the back of the car to find your brain chunks. That's a keeper.
The Moorman
I think
line
some
of
brain chunks are over here.
Sight must line up the pedestal with the window as shown. Any other line of sight will not result in this lineup. Using this visual cross as a reference, I knew I could establish the exact viewpoint from which the Moorman picture was taken.
All right, come on, get to the good shit.
Notice that I do not say location. This is merely a line of sight on which the camera lens must be located. Here is a plat of Dealey Plaza showing the line of sight between the cross and Moorman's position. And you can see that it confirms my observation. The camera has to be somewhere on this line. But remember, I had taken a photo of the Crute limousine from the presumed Moorman location shown in the Z film, and it did not match this cross alignment. So I decided to find the true line of sight and take measurements.
There he is.
I went to the plaza with an 8-foot pole marked in 1-foot segments. Robert Groden kindly assisted me by taking photos which would give me an exact scale of many locations, both vertically and horizontally. While doing this, I decided to locate the cross I have mentioned.
There he is, looking badass.
I found the cross lineup approximately 8 feet west of the position where Moorman is shown in the Zapruder film. Note my 8-foot measuring rod on the curb. Remembering this location, I scanned into my computer one of my slides and created this white
must have been a fucking shitty computer. How old is this?
Cross where the line of sight is across the street. It has a vertical line representing the exact side-to-side line of sight and a white crossbar representing the exact height of the camera lens off the ground.
We're going to get these guys.
The red dot represents the exact line of sight that the camera lens had to be on for the Moorman photo to capture the reference point of the cross across the street. I then put this new information to work. Remember the photo of the Crute limo at the frame 313 position?
Oh, we got frame
Since
positions?
the limo provided an exact scale and position, I decided to overlay a Z-frame showing Mary Moorman's position onto the Crute limo. Because frame 313 is blurry and Moorman is only barely seen, I decided to use frame 312. in which Mary is clearly seen for the last time. The use of 312 instead of 313 actually makes for an even greater distance east for Mary, as I have drawn in blue here. So the fact I'm comparing frame 312 to the 313 limo position actually strengthens my conclusions. Overlaying frame 312 onto the Crete limo to precise scale, I obtained exact fit of
what is that bitch, like 20 feet tall? That's a big bitch.
Notice that this places Moorman about 4 feet northwest of the present-day lamppost, exactly where she is shown in the Zapruder film and map placements.
I know, right?
This Z overlay over the present-day scene gives us an accurate reference for comparison. But wait, remember my white cross? It is about 8 feet west of where Mary is seen in this composite. Moorman's photo can only be taken from the side-to-side location of my white cross. Here I have overlaid the photo of the white cross onto the previous composite. This slide shows the alleged position of Moorman in the Zapruder film, along with the actual line of sight where her photo had to be taken, the white cross with the red dot. You can see that they do not match.
Oh, shit!
Up to now, I had been working only with approximations to the nearest foot. I decided I needed to be more exact before presenting my findings as evidence. Knowing that Mary Moorman's height was 5'2", I prepared a stick of that length with enough at the bottom to drive it into the ground.
Jack.
Looking past the stick across Elm Street and locating the cross formed by the window and the pedestal, I drove the stick into the soft ground till its top was at 5'2". When I located the reference cross on the knoll, I taped red paper at that spot on my stick.
Oh, now we got it now.
As you can see, the red mark on the stick exactly coincides.
See, Jack, you're not going to win normal people over with this. You know what I mean?
With the reference cross on the
You
knoll.
might be right,
This
but it's a lot of
has to be
yapping.
the exact line of sight of the Moorman photo. But wait, if Mary is standing where she is seen in the Zapruder film, 2 feet back from the curb, the lens is found by my tape measure to be only 44.5 inches off the ground, or 17.5 inches below the top of her head.
We need
But
Palladium.
the camera cannot be that low, nearly to her waist. Look where the camera is held to her eye in frame 312, at least a foot higher than the line of sight I had located.
That is true, African.
Well, how can that be? Remember what Gene Hill said, that they stepped off the curb into the street to take the photo? Well, look here. The ground slopes sharply several inches toward the street.
This guy went over everything.
The street in 1963 was at least 8 inches lower than where Moorman and Hill are seen in the Z film. Using my cane to demonstrate, I showed that the street was about a foot lower than the grass where Moorman and Hill were alleged to be standing. A foot lower is just the right amount to lower Mary to the correct line of sight to locate the reference cross.
All right, what does this mean?
On the knoll in the camera viewfinder.
You're confusing everybody, Jack.
And the street pavement in 1963 was more than 3 inches lower than today, as revealed by repaving layers of asphalt at storm sewer.
Valiant Thor was going to double team Marilyn Monroe, but that guy stunk up his spaceship. A guy went in there and shit all over the place, and it smelled bad.
Which made the street even lower in 1963. Two researchers from New York, Peter and Perrine McKenna, who came to the plaza to take some measurements, assisted me with these photos. Peter took this picture of me and his wife.
Jack making friends all over the place.
From the pedestal. Here you see Perrine and me with the Moorman stick. Perrine is 5'5" and is standing 2 feet back from the curb for comparison with the 5'2" Moorman height. The red spot on the stick represents the exact position of the camera to be on the correct line of sight to the pergola reference cross. Here I have overlaid the previous photo over the composite of the limousine in frame 312, so you can see where Moorman had to be standing on November 22nd, to have the correct line of sight. She had to be where the stick is. Yeah. Anyone can go to the plaza and determine this.
I'm confused.
We precisely represent Mary at 62 inches, me at 72 inches.
I remember watching this years and years ago saying, like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. What the hell was wrong with me? I must have had something wrong with my brains.
And Perrine at 65 inches. The limo is the correct size and location, so this is an accurate representation of Mary's false Zapruder location and the true Mormon photo horizontal location, though not the correct vertical location. Notice that the 5'2" Mormon is nearly as tall as I am.
Better start
and
getting
appears
good, you
taller
jerk.
than the 5'5" Perrine. She obviously is enlarged compared to reality. Here I have added yellow spots to represent the camera lens.
Oh, come on. Next
In the Z
next
frame
topic.
at left, we see the camera held to the eye of Mary Mormon.
No one cares anymore.
But at the right, we see a spot at the only actual location of the line of sight that the photo could be taken.
Yes, that's the same guy.
And it is about a foot lower. She cannot take the photo standing on the grass, so she must be about a foot lower in the street to be on the correct line of sight.
So what they're trying to say,
From
in the
foregoing
video, she's on the grass, but really she was in the street.
study, I have concluded that Z-frame 312
I guess
cannot be a depiction of the true location of Mary Mormon when she snapped her photo. Since the Mormon photo is genuine, then frame 312 and all other frames showing Hill and Mormon on the grass must necessarily show them in false positions. This is decisive proof of tampering of the Zapruder film. And there are other proofs.
Yeah,
Additional
next one.
proof of Zapruder film alteration is provided by the yellow curb stripes in the kill zone.
The kill zone?
Researchers have known for many years about a series of meaningless 4-foot yellow painted curb stripes along the south curb of Elm Street in the kill zone. It has long been suspected that the conspirators painted these stripes to
I never knew that. A kill zone?
delineate the area where the shots were to be fired.
Hey, when he gets in these yellow stripes, start shooting.
You can see remnants of the paint on the curb even today. Suspecting that the curb markings would provide an exact scale for Z-frame comparisons, I made another trip to the plaza.
I don't know. Maybe it makes sense.
Took along
It's on
strips
the
of
road.
orange
I don't know.
paper to accent the exact locations of the stripes so I could photograph them from the pedestal. Here you see the exact position of the easternmost stripe. Here are the two other stripes west of the first one. They are all approximately 40 feet apart. I asked Robin Deloria.
Well, he's gonna put it all together.
Researcher.
Wrap it
who
up
had
with a
been
nice
helping me
bow.
make computer composites
You watch.
for this presentation to combine the two curb photos into a panoramic view. Here is the resulting panorama with the locations of the yellow stripes marked for easier reference. Remember, this panoramic view was photographed from the Zapruder pedestal. These markings have long been known. Here is a Dealey Plaza plat drawn by Robert Cutler in the 1970s, which clearly and accurately locates the yellow stripes. I have highlighted them and drawn lines to them.
Wouldn't there be more talk about those yellow stripes on the side, though, like right where he was shot? I think there'd be more talk about that.
The Zapruder pedestal as part of my study. I then looked at the film for all the Z-frames, which show the yellow curb stripes. Quite a few frames show the stripes, but I selected this one as the perfect comparison frame since it shows a complete yellow stripe clearly and sharply. The frame you see here, labeled 355, is from the new MPI version. Unfortunately, some MPI frames are misnumbered at several points after the headshot, so cannot be relied on. But
That's
I will
when she
not
was scooping
attempt
up
to
the
correct
brains.
their errors here. I have pointed to the stripe here with yellow lines.
Thanks,
it is easily seen that knowing the location and length of the stripe provides an exact scale for comparison by overlaying the Z frame on the present day view. Here,
why is that guy
vertical
crab
lines
walking?
have been added so that the two yellow stripes could be scaled to the exact same size. You can see from the lines and dots that the scale is the same. When the full frame of 355 is overlaid onto the present scene of the yellow stripes, we see that the scale of the Zapruder frame is much too large. It shows Grice overlapping the area.
I think what he's trying to say is that they cut the limo out and put the whatever that is, the side of the road farther down.
The pavement of Main Street should be seen, as I've indicated with lines and type. This overlap can be calculated to be approximately 130% enlargement in order to extend.
Maybe he was doing one of those Russian dances.
That high, measuring from the curb to the top of the frame.
Oh, yeah. JFK Reloaded. It's so frustrating. I think I did it once. I got him once.
When we superimpose a ghosted frame, 355, onto the Dealey panorama, using the yellow stripe for position, we can easily see that a very tall James Altgens towers over the scene shooting photographs.
He's a big dude.
I suspect that the curb was used as a convenient dividing line by the animation workers. The areas above the curb seem to be enlarged and moved around selectively. It is plain that this enlargement of the background,
but why?
Proved by the yellow curb stripes, is another decisive proof of alteration. And there is more.
Oh, there is?
Speaking of people who are much too tall from enlargement of the background, in many frames a woman is seen running toward Elm Street. If the Zapruder film is authentic, she can be shown to be approaching 7 feet tall.
That's a big bilf.
Here we see the running
What would
woman
you even do with a 7-foot-tall bilf?
in the background, while Mary Moorman is taking a photo in frame 312. By pure coincidence, the position of the running woman in frame 312 is in an exact location which enables us to determine her height in the Zapruder film.
That's a giant.
The present-day lampposts in Dealey Plaza, both by my measurement and confirmation of the Dallas Park Department, are exactly 14 feet tall. As luck would have it, in this composite, the feet of the running woman fall exactly on a line drawn between the bases of two lampposts.
If she don't bully you, she might bully you.
This provides a precise scale of the height of the woman. As you can see, a line drawn between the tops of the poles is 14 feet above the ground. And a connecting
Make her work in the field.
line halfway up is 7 feet above the ground.
So true.
Since the woman's feet are on the ground level line, she is easily
I'd make her get the shit from the top shelf.
Measured to be at least 6 foot 6 inches tall. Researchers who have located and talked to this running woman tell me that her actual height is 5 feet. If other frames have backgrounds enlarged about 130%, as I have shown, let's compare her actual height of
I am not a manlet, thank you very much.
60 inches
How dare you,
to the height
sir.
shown here of about 78 inches. Let's see what the math is. Yep, 78 inches is exactly 130% of 60 inches, confirming a uniform enlargement of the background.
Yeah, so that bitch is huge.
The film, therefore, cannot be authentic. And there is more. Comparing the Z film to the Moorman photo proved very fruitful. So I decided to compare it to other photos. By far the most interesting of these is the Cancelleri photo taken by Life magazine photographer Frank Cancelleri. His photo
Well, okay, then I'm a king manlet, okay? I'll take king manlet.
Provides a very strong indication of alteration through comparison of people and vehicles. Upon hearing the shots, Cancelleri and other photographers jumped from the photographer's convertible and ran toward the grassy knoll. There, an estimated 20 seconds after the final shots, Cancelleri and other photographers filmed Bill and Gail Newman lying on the grass shielding their children. There is no doubt that this is
They're not going to shoot you, lady. The president's driving by. Well, we better get down. They're after us, apparently.
Genuine photo of the immediate post-assassination scene. The Cancelleri photo seems to indicate additional alterations to the Zapruder film. A man and an object are seen in a pickup truck in the Cancelleri picture, which are not there 20 seconds earlier in the Zapruder film. And Cancelleri also shows a long sedan, which in the Z film undergoes several peculiar transformations and seems to become a short pickup truck. Here is frame 404, misnumbered on the MPI video as 403, a typical Z frame which shows the stalled traffic on Commerce Street in the background. Take particular notice.
This is supposed to be morphing. Does it morph?
Of the pickup truck behind the lamppost. You can clearly see that the bed of the pickup truck is entirely empty in the Zapruder film. An enlargement from that frame makes it certain that no person nor object is in the pickup bed. Now let's look at the full width of Cancelleri before we make a comparison of the vehicles shown in Zapruder.
She was no Barbara Bush, I'll give you that.
Zoom in and see what the Commerce stall traffic shows. Near the triple underpass at right, we see James Tague standing by his car. Next, we see a person standing by an open car door. The car perhaps appears to be a long 1963 Pontiac two-door sedan with a person standing by the open door. Next car, hidden behind a photographer Alkins in the foreground, is a midget
people
car.
standing on the side of it.
It has been identified as perhaps a British Austin or a Morris Minor. Next is the pickup truck of indeterminate make, with a man and an object in the pickup bed.
Oh, there's a man and an object.
A close-up of the Cancelleri photo shows a man kneeling inside the pickup bed, perhaps with an object beside him to his left. 20 seconds earlier, the pickup man and object were not present in the Zapruder film. Now let's look at the far right of these Z frames. Here we see MPI frames 410, 411, 415, and 416.
It was a transformer?
All lined up vertically so that the midget car lines up in each frame. Notice that the next car westward undergoes puzzling changes until it eventually appears to become a short pickup truck. Remember, in the Cancelleri photo, we saw that it was a long two-door
Jack, you lost me. You lost me with this.
sedan with a man standing by the open door.
That's just the camera moving.
10 minutes later, this Murray photo shows the midget auto and the long Pontiac sedan, definitely not a pickup truck, and much longer than the apparent truck seen in Zapruder. James Tague told me he remembers the occupant of the sedan leaving his car parked, as Tague did, and mingling with other witnesses. Tague himself wandered up to the area in the oval at right, where he was photographed with the group, which included Buddy Walters, who were all gathered by a manhole cover where a bullet or other debris was found, as seen in this photo. And there are more strange observations.
I think you're right.
Further indication of Zapruder film alteration
31
is provided by
motionless
the
curb
apparently 31 motionless people seen along the curb on the north side of Allen.
This is going to change your mind.
From the beginning of the Z film, we see a group of people, shoulder to shoulder, standing along the L curb in single file.
Watch this.
For nearly 200 frames, they stand almost totally motionless. The lead motorcycles approach. The people do not move.
What now?
People on the south curb move about. Those on the north curb are motionless and unemotional. They are sharply
What now? They were edited in.
Seen in frame 131.
Man, I'll cover with your street name.
But in frame 132, the scene suddenly becomes blurry, as apparently Zapruder quits filming. There is no apparent fade out, as is often customary when releasing the shutter button of the camera. And as you will learn later, Zapruder did not stop filming here. Suddenly, the presidential limo abruptly appears in frame 133, already well down Elm Street from the intersection. There is no fade-in exposure, as is sometimes customary.
Because it was cut.
Well, what does the Z film miss during the break between frames 132 and 133? The third lead motorcycle, the Curry-Decker lead car approaching on Houston, turning the corner and leaving the Zapruder field of view, the limo and motorcycles approaching, turning the corner in an erratic manner, and entering Zapruder's field of view and reaching the location of frame 133. None of these things are seen in the present Z film. But Zapruder said...
Yeah, and they didn't release it till like the 80s, right? It was something like that, late 70s. Like they had the film for years, and they never put it out.
He filmed the limo turning the corner. You will learn that he was correct. Frames are missing between frames 132 and 133. During all of this missing time, only one person has shifted stance slightly. How much time is missing? I estimate perhaps as well over 30 seconds.
Yeah, supposedly they got pictures of Bush there.
Does it make any sense?
Which Bush, the old Bush, yeah, was head of the CIA for years.
31 people would remain perfectly motionless for this long?
No,
when the president comes into view, it seems natural that spectators should turn toward him, clap, wave, or show some emotional. But they stand motionless. And since Zapruder was there to film the president, why would he film the lead motorcycles, stop, but then resume filming only after the president was well westward on Elm Street? Did he really not film the presidential limo when it rounded the corner and started down Elm Street? Highly unlikely, in my opinion. Well, if frames were removed between 132 and 133, what was it that someone wanted to hide?
I think so.
Was it a very wide turn of the limo and an awkward effort to regain the mid-street course? Was it indications of missed shots near the intersection? Could the motionless spectators be used to hide peculiar limo wanderings?
Peculiar limo wanderings?
The motionless spectators are in place for nearly 200 frames, plus the missing gap between 132 and 133. Yet if the same stretch of curb is examined in other photos, such as Willis 5, Betzner, Bronson, and others, such as Altgens,
what a nice picture.
We find that the people seem to be somewhat different in number, description, and actions.
Yeah, because they were edited in.
True that the Altgens photo was snapped several seconds after the Z frames showing the motionless people, but there is no reason to believe the people would have changed positions very much in that brief time. Here I have flopped part of Altgens and placed it beside a Z frame for comparison. Let's compare.
True, Shakes. That is
Number
true.
one person in both pictures is a man in a construction helmet, claimed by Fletcher Prouty to resemble Agent Lucian Conine.
What?
Number two in Altgens seems to be a man in a dark coat and white shirt. But number two in Zapruder is a brown-haired woman in white blouse and black skirt. Number three in Altgens is a smiling woman in a white blouse who seems to be clapping. But number three in Zapruder is a dark-haired woman in a dark dress or coat.
Explain that.
Number four in Altgens is plainly a black woman with lots of black hair, her face partially obscured by the hand of woman number five. But number four in Zapruder is a stout, short, blonde, white woman with a light blue blouse or jacket.
Hey, she has a good personality, all right?
Now let's look at woman number five. In Altgens, she wears a dark dress and with her left arm raised, may be donning a white jacket, which is over her shoulder. But in Zapruder, she has a dark dress and no white jacket.
Now what, doubters?
Woman number six in Altgens is clapping and wears a light-colored dress. But in Zapruder, she has on a dark topcoat. How can all these be the same people? Only the man in the construction helmet seems the same to me. In Willis 5, the first lady west of the man in the helmet has on a red skirt. In Zapruder, she appears to have on a black and white skirt of print design. Additional comparisons with all photos should be made to find any other discrepancies. For instance,
Lyndon was a real turd.
a close-up from the Bronson.
I mean, I'm no fan of JFK, but Lyndon was a fucking turd.
Shows the same 5 women closest to the Stemmon sign that are seen in Zapruder and are at approximately the same time. Here you see an extreme enlargement of the Bronson women.
Look at the. I was gonna say, there's a guy in the back of the limo, like, wow.
I've numbered them for easy reference, 1 through 5, from west to east. Note that the limousine is just passing them. Here I have flopped Z-frame 183 showing the same 5 women so that they can be numbered west to east for comparison with the Bronson ladies. Note that the limo is just about even with them. Both photos are exposed at nearly the same moment, within a second or two. Notice the following.
What are we noticing?
Lady 1 has a blue headscarf and dark topcoat in both Zapruder and Bronson.
Looking very nice.
No apparent discrepancy. Lady 2 has a dark blue dress and is clapping hands in front of her chest. No apparent discrepancy. Lady 3 in Zapruder has a maroon or blue hip-length jacket and a light skirt, and her hands are at her side, possibly holding a purse. In Bronson, this woman has a bulky, long black topcoat and is waving her right hand above her head.
Yeah, but the one picture, it's got motion blur, dude.
Her flesh tones are much darker than ladies 2 and 5, raising ethnic possibilities.
I don't know about this one. Ethnic possibilities.
Lady 4 in Zapruder
Aren't we all sick of ethnic possibilities?
a maroon or pink blouse and a dark blue skirt, and her hands are down in front of her. In Bronson, her clothing is similar, but she is waving vigorously, her right arm extended high. Her arm appears to be bare, or with lighter or yellow sleeve. Lady 5 in Zapruder is in an all-pink dress and clutches a purse under her left arm.
I'm going 2.
In Bronson, Lady 5 is very puzzling to analyze. Instead of the pink dress and purse seen in Zapruder, she has on a gold-colored dress, and no purse is seen. She also appears to be wearing a blue sweater or jacket and waving her right hand high in the air. But additional analysis shows the alternate possibility that the blue jacket or shirt could perhaps belong to a waving person whose face is not seen, standing very close immediately behind the number 5 lady. Either way, Bronson Lady 5 seems different than the Zapruder lady. Her dress is a different color, and she possibly
This is not a goof. This is the legendary Jack White.
Be wearing a blue sweater, or a person with a blue shirt or sweater may be standing behind her. But no blue-shirted person can be seen waving behind her in Zapruder, and the pink dress Zapruder lady lacks a blue sweater.
You don't like the
Many other comparisons such as these can be made. My conclusion
is using high quality
is
Mr.
that
Microphone.
the 31 motionless curve people may result from
all right, you
alteration
spend enough
of the
time
film.
on these. We got it,
The
dude.
same group seems to have been repeated frame after frame.
There we go. Finally.
I have presented just a few anomalies. There are many other things which still need to be studied, such as the unexplained
Jack, you spent way too much time on those bitches.
132 to 133 unfilmed gap, sudden moves such as the Greer head turn and the movement of the Brim boy, Connolly's turns which do not match his testimony, JFK's wandering head wound which contradicts
Maybe Jack's one of those guys who likes to fucking put the microphone deep into their mouth.
Testimony of all witnesses, as well as autopsy photos. Consecutive frames which are in focus and out of focus, are blurred and not blurred. The irregularity of the limo blinking lights. Incorrect shadows. Odd artifacts. Action studies of apparent inconsistent movements, such as Clint Hill's dash and boarding of the limo. Many sizes or positions in the film which are wrong, as I have shown with the Mormon photo.
All right, come on, Jack.
Extremely odd people.
Only 15 minutes left, guys. We could do it. We could do it.
Amoeba man, stick man, running woman, and the giant Altgens. Ghost images and other anomalies in the inner sprocket areas. Conflicts of Z-frames with testimony. I could go on and on with areas needing further study. In closing, I will mention just a few of these anomalies needing more study, such as the black trapezoid, an unexplainable geometric shape which appears in this one frame only.
I like that he labeled it. I wouldn't know where the trapezoid was.
And let's take a look at inconsistent shadows. Here we have a lamppost shadow, which is consistent with most other shadows in the plaza, pointing generally toward the book depository. The shadow of the lamppost is measurable at a 12-degree angle to the curb of Main Street. But only 47 frames later, another lamppost casts a shadow which has a 140-degree angle to the curb.
Fakery.
In 47 frames, the shadow angle changes 128 degrees, although the Zapruder panning angle of arc changes only 34 degrees. This seems strange to me, and it certainly deserves expert study. But wait, here is an image
what the hell
which
is
may
that?
give us two anomalies at once. The shadow of the lamppost goes one direction, and the shadow of the man goes a different direction.
Stick man.
Did I say man? This is a figure which I call Stick Man. He looks like a stick figure which a child might draw, not like any photographic image of a real person. In fact, just a few frames earlier, I refer to him as Amoeba Man because his formless shape changes as he moves. Watch as he assumes many peculiar shapes as he runs past the lamppost at the right.
Let's see.
He is at far right here, and
Is
though
it
very
Slender
blurry
Man?
and inhuman looking, he covers very little ground, but changes shape often.
It looks like the taffy guy from Clay Fighters.
Well, that is enough of my proof for the moment. There are many other anomalies which need further study. Suffice it to say for now that the Mormon photo is all that is needed to conclusively prove that the so-called camera original Z film is a fabrication.
Yeah, I don't know. He's got to wrap it up.
Proving that the film has been altered, of course, is not the same thing as explaining why it was altered.
Oh, here we go, Nerky, or the ball.
Even in this case, however, there is very new information. A new JFK book published in France this summer by respected French journalist William Raymond has previously unknown information on this. Raymond was in Dallas in early November writing assassination coverage for France's leading magazine, Le Figaro. He kindly recorded for me...
Well, he kind of proved a 7-foot-tall woman, but I don't know what that means. Like, what was the point of the 7-foot-tall woman?
A statement regarding the Zapruder
That's
family.
the only thing I could pull from this. Well, there was this 7-foot-tall bitch who's not really 7 foot tall in real life.
From a secret French intelligence source, he has been shown a version of the unaltered Zapruder film. Here is part of what Mr. Raymond says.
About the Z film, a complete version exists. This version seems to be the
I don't speak Haggit.
And the secret copy. I met some witnesses who watched it in the mid-70s, and I have a privilege to watch it a couple of times myself. The quality is good and the information on it is very important. 4 sequences were absolutely new to me. First, the turn on Elm Street. Mr. Z never stopped filming. On this version you can see the turn of a limo, on this version you can see the turn of a Curry pilot car and also the JFK limo. You can perfectly watch, but Greer doesn't choose the correct turn trajectory and makes a very wide turn. These things are not seen in the present film. The second thing is the throat shot. The first shot hit JFK on the throat. The target, of course, was the head. but because Graham misdiscerned, the first shot was delayed and not accurate. The third is the Stemmons sign. The sign was hit by a bullet. You can see the bullet hit the back of the sign. It's proof of a missed shot from the north. Number 4, the headshot. The limo comes to nearly a complete stop and JFK was hit in the head.
Where do I see this shit?
The stop was very brief, but no such stop is present in the altered version. I've seen the real version of the Zapruder film, and the other one is only a hoax.
So here is what has been learned from
Okay, I'll just take that guy's word for it then.
French investigative journalist. 1. An unaltered copy of the Z film exists in the hands of former French intelligence officers. 2. Ramon has viewed it several times at their invitation. 3. He believes it is the long-rumored H.L. Hunt secret copy, according to information furnished to him. 4. Zapruder's filming included the limo's Elm Street turn as well as the lead car. 5. The unaltered film shows the limo turned very wide and erratically attempted to straighten up.
Yeah, but we'll never see this version, so why talk about it? You know what I mean? You need
6.
Jack?
The erratic wide turn spoiled the aim of the Crossfire teams, causing the throat shot and other missed shots. The plan called for a crossfire during the slow Houston to Elm turn. Ramon's opinion from watching the film is that Greer panicked at the last moment. His sources told him that the Secret Service was involved. 7.
That was my street
A
name.
missed shot hits the top edge of the Stemmons sign, and debris flies upward. 8. Just past the Stemmons sign, the limo stops for about 2 seconds. 9. Then 2 shots hit the JFK head almost simultaneously.
They hit the JFK head?
And the limo pulls away. Ramon's information is that there were likely more than 3 three-man shooter teams in at least 3 locations. He was told the identities of some. French intelligence sources told him that this man fired one of the headshots.
He looks like a bad dude. I wouldn't trust that guy.
Was the primary shooter. The others were backups. This man was a French mercenary and was known to be the best rifle shot in the world by French intelligence at that time. If what Ramon says is correct, then we not only know that...
But how do we know we don't know if it's correct
the Zapruder film has been altered, but why had
this was not in 1998. That couldn't have been in 1998. This looks like it's 1952.
His information obviously needs to be pursued, and the film he has seen be seen by others. But there can be no doubt now that the Zapruder film has been subjected to extensive alteration and may be the greatest hoax of all time. The official history of the assassination has now been proved to be a lie.
Wait. You didn't prove nothing. Wait a minute. Oh, I don't want to see this shit. Oh, man. I swear I watched it. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I watched something years ago and it was great. That stunk. That sucked peckers. Oh, I bet you this one was good. I don't know, guys. There was, other than the 7-foot bitch, the kill zone markings, the people not moving on the side of the road, and the weird stick figure guy, there really wasn't much there. But we did learn, Hell Mama dropped a bombshell, that it was actually Steve Harvey who killed everybody. And that's certainly something. But guys, I don't know. Am I going to keep doing these shitty Monday streams? I always think oh, this is going to be great. And then it always stinks. I mean, this one wasn't too bad, but it wasn't like the guy shitting in the spaceship good. That was a classic. I don't know. Hey guys, I'll see you at Friday or something. Oh yeah, Christmas. If you got nothing to do to Christmas on Christmas, check the stream out on Friday. We did suffer together. And hey, I'll see you later, everybody.